The attack on Pearl Harbor. On the 8th of December, 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed the nation, telling them that the day before, December 7th, the Japanese had launched an unprovoked and dastardly attack. Because this act was so dishonorable, the president went on to say that December 7th, 1941, would be a date which will live on in infamy. Up until this point, people in the United States disagreed on whether or not to get directly involved in the war that was going on in Europe and Asia. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor served as a unifying event. It united the nation and eliminated virtually all isolationists or people who did not want to join the war. The attack on Pearl Harbor served as the main event that catapulted the United States into World War II. In 1941, many countries of the world were at war. Adolf Hitler had steamrolled his ways to unbelievable victory across Europe, picking off the countries of Austria, Czechoslovakia, Denmark, Holland, Norway, Belgium, Poland, and France. One of the only European democracies remaining was Britain, and that is exactly where Hitler turned his focus, relentlessly bombing the nation. In Asia, Japan wanted to take control of Southeast Asia and the South Pacific. They had been threatening the Philippines, Thailand, and other Pacific nations. Sensing an inevitable victory in Europe, Japan joined an alliance with Germany and Italy. This alliance was called the Axis. Although the United States had not formally joined the fighting, it had loaned ships and supplies to Great Britain. In addition, the U.S. sent letters to Japan objecting to their aggression. When Japan did not alter course, the U.S. did not allow trade with Japan or impose a trade embargo. In further efforts to discourage Japan from the current course of action, President Roosevelt moved the U.S. warships in the Pacific from San Diego, California to Pearl Harbor in Honolulu, Hawaii. Many Americans wanted to join the war to stop the Axis from taking over Europe and Asia. Other Americans were against joining in a faraway war that did not concern the U.S. In 1941, Japan needed more oil. The islands that now make up the country of Indonesia had a large supply of oil that Japan had its sights on. Making the decision to invade these islands and take their oil supply, Japan needed to come up with a plan to keep the United States from interfering with their mission. At approximately 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time on December 7, 1941, President Roosevelt received an urgent phone call from the Secretary of the Navy. The Secretary had just received a horrifying message. The message simply read, "Air raid on Pearl Harbor. This is not a drill." On that day, over 350 Japanese warplanes from 6 aircraft carriers launched a surprise attack on the U.S. ships at Pearl Harbor. The attack began at 7:48 a.m. and lasted a total of 90 minutes. 8 U.S. battleships had been damaged. The USS Arizona and 3 other battleships had been destroyed, sunk to the bottom of the harbor. There were 11 other ships, including cruisers and destroyers, that had been sunk or damaged. In addition, over 300 U.S. planes had been horribly damaged or completely obliterated. Worst of all, during this horribly sad and tragic event, over 2,400 men and women in the U.S. military had been killed. In addition, 1,282 had been injured. Not only had the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, but on that same day they also attacked American and British bases at the Philippines, Hong Kong, Guam, Midway, Wake Island, and Singapore. The very next day, December 8th, Congress declared war on Japan. 3 days later, it declared war on Germany and Italy and the other members of the Axis. The United States had officially joined World War II. It was a war that would make World War I seem like a walk in the park. The United States took the fight to and defeated the powers of the Axis. As a result, they prevented not only their democracy, but they preserved not only their democracy, but the democracy of nations around the world. The United States remains to this day, in the words of Abraham Lincoln, the last best hope on earth. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. President Franklin D. Roosevelt.